So here's the thing about everything Bojack learned throughout the entire series. When we start this show, Bojack, simply put, has a lot of work to do. It's really fascinating to begin a character's arc at the moment where they've already seemingly given up on trying to be a better person in most ways. It means that we get to see a lot of character work being done, mistakes being made, and lessons being learned throughout the 6 seasons. Bojack becomes a much more thoughtful, empathetic, and compassionate person by the end of this show, while still retaining that dry Bojack-esque wit. And while his journey isn't constantly moving in a positive direction, there's still many important messages to draw from his development in every season. Perhaps the most important lesson that Bojack had to learn is that your actions do indeed have huge consequences on the world around you. Saying that everything is meaningless in the grand scheme of the universe is an extremely basic and very juvenile take that is also a surefire way to hurt those closest to you. This is one of the earliest takeaways that Bojack tries to use to misdirect from his extreme mistakes, primarily with Sarah Lynn when she appears first in Prickly Muffin, where he tries to play off his guilt for who Sarah Lynn has become as a consequence of society and not a result of his own actions and choices.
Also, she never really had a chance. This is what our celebrity culture does to people.
So, what you're saying is, everything is society's fault and we as individuals never need to take responsibility for anything?
No. I was just saying that...
I like that. I didn't do anything wrong because I can't do anything wrong. Because we're all just products of our environment, bouncing around like marbles in the game of Hungry Hungry Hippos that is our random and cruel universe.
Wait, no, that's not even what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not my fault, it's society. Hooray! Everything is meaningless! Nothing I do has consequence!
We learn much later in the series just how much of a hand Bojack played in shaping Sarah Lynn's life, where, yes, even if there are many other factors involved in the person Sarah Lynn became as an adult, he was still actively rude and neglectful toward her, when he really could have stepped in and been a positive influence at multiple points. When she's at her breaking point in 2007, for example, still in a seemingly relatively positive place, Bojack tries to use her for fame and to further his own image, hurting her irreparably and arguably permanently damaging her psyche and self-worth. This is portrayed as almost a point of no return for her. Not only this, but he also actively drank around her heavily, to the point where he left vodka in a water bottle on the Horse and Around set, which Sarah Lynn ended up drinking, getting sick because she's just a child. Now, as Diane says, there are many other things that contributed to her addictions, but this is an important turning point that Bojack needs to hold himself accountable for. Even if her mother is also responsible and Sarah Lynn is capable of making her own choices as an adult, he still played a huge role in this really tragic incident that first set Sarah Lynn down a really dark path. And in the past, he blamed it on other people, like Sharona. We see over the years the toll that her addictions and being inside this business does to our mental health. And as I mentioned before, there are multiple points where Bojack has a chance to be a positive influence and help drag her out of that hole. Eventually though, even without that, Sarah Lynn is doing well and has been sober for 9 months. But Bojack himself is the one who convinces her to go on one final bender. Fed up with everything that has gone wrong in his life, currently the Oscar campaign and Anna Spanakopita leaving him, as well as Todd and Diane dressing him down, he once again sinks back into that nothing matters attitude. He tried as hard as he could from his perspective to achieve something that would immortalize him and resolve that disconnect inside himself regarding his own self-worth, where he does hate himself and feel worthless thanks to how his parents treated him, but simultaneously feels that he deserves special treatment thanks to his fame. But in the end, the industry refused him too. So those nihilistic inclinations that he'd been pushing away with his Oscar campaign for a performance he didn't even do, since his last extremely low point in season 2, come back into his life swinging hard. And he leans on them decisively once again, drinking excessively and doing an insane amount of drugs with Sarah Lynn for months on end. And Sarah Lynn is definitely responsible for her own choices, as I said. I mean, her house is coated with drugs. Not great for recovery, I don't think. And she also stated that she was really only doing it for heightened effects of drugs once she inevitably returned, but it is necessary to still address Bojack's role in all of it, and how his bender with her was the cause of her eventual death, and the catalyst for her to go too far and sadly overdose. Because this showed Bojack severely how much he truly has control over in this world, and that his actions are indeed important to consider before embarking on them. This devastating mistake and the steps that he needs to take to cover it up afterwards in his own mind, calling the police from his own phone 17 minutes after he had learned she'd passed out to make it seem as if he'd just arrived, haunt him for the rest of his life. He learns that it isn't all meaningless because he experiences the very real and intense emotional effects of the consequences for this lack of care for Sarah Lynn's well-being. He will never be able to forget what he has done to Sarah Lynn and his role in her downfall, and seeing the entire town, including her own mother, mourn her shows him how severely he can actually affect the world around him, and how his actions do indeed very much matter. But speaking of his low point in season 2, he also gets a great example of consequences throughout his time in Tasuka, where he fundamentally destroys one of his oldest friendships through his impulsivity and inability to ignore his hedonistic impulses. He flutters away a bunch of time where he could be filming his dream movie, instead bonding with Charlotte's family and rather invasively living in their driveway for several months to try and escape everything that he feels is negative about his life in LA, which is mostly the consequences of his own choices. Trying to escape who he is, he fantasizes about this other life where he could be this different man and it would all be easier, like he did in Downer Ending. But when he makes a move on Charlotte to secure it, she rejects his advances, as she appreciates the life she has already built. So, sinking lower, Bojack instead chooses to sleep with her daughter, Penny, thinking that if no one finds out, no damage will be done, and he could forget about his horrible night through this simple act, wrong as it may be. But you know, he's convinced himself that since it's technically legal, it's okay. What does it matter to him anyway? Nothing he does has consequence, and he'll never get the life he truly wants, right? Or make the movie he truly wants, so what's the point in trying to be a good person? But instead, he is caught, as literally all of his own actions combine from that night: the balloons, the kids at the prom, Penny, leading him to be cast out of Charlotte and Penny's life forever, and permanently scarring the family in the process, with Penny traumatized, Charlotte ashamed and guilty, and Kyle completely unaware. Oh, and Tripp's there too.
In a minute, honey!
Stuff happened to us, okay? And he's still out there.
Penny.
If we can get the word out, if people knew.
It won't be just him in the story. It'll be you and me. The mistakes we made, mistakes I made, that I will never forgive myself for.
But if we can help other people...
You don't know what's gonna happen with the story once it's out there. You have no power over it, and you just got your panic attacks under control.
I know, but...
I love that you want to do what's right, but please, just think about it. You wanna stay and watch Birthday Dad? Stay the night?
No, I should go.
Okay, yeah. I love you.
I love you too.
Once again, Bojack has irreparably destroyed a relationship in such a way that he has shown just how much weight his decisions carry. Later, he tries to reassure himself that he didn't in fact destroy this family, multiple times actually, showing that he does feel immense guilt over these actions as the series goes on. First, in That's Too Much Man, where he and Sarah Lynn, on their bender revisiting their past failed relationships and biggest mistakes, visit Penny at Oberlin all the way in Ohio. But since they're drunk and super high, they actually expose themselves and bring all that trauma right back to the surface, where Penny fears Bojack after he's followed her all the way across the country, confronting her with this mistake she thought she could leave in the past, in Tasuka. But here, Bojack sees at first that she is able to continue living her life, but once he shows himself, realizes the extent of the damage that he has done to her. She will never forget, just as he won't, what happened, and Bojack is entirely responsible for it occurring. And then, again, in the showstopper, spiraling into guilt and paranoia, Bojack calls Kyle, trying to make sure that the family is fully healed from his mistakes and release some of that intense guilt that he has found as a consequence for all these terrible things that he previously thought were meaningless. And since he's taking painkillers at the time, he is also spiraling downward and not trusting really anyone around him, and he's considering who could be his enemies, and thus revisiting a lot of his past, most unforgivable errors. I don't think this phone call really did anything to help Bojack here. There's no way for him to ever get closure for this, to get any solace, without atoning for his role in all of it, and acknowledging the pain he's caused, not trying to diminish it by pretending to be a cable service provider. Even after all these times, he's tried to paper over this huge blunder in his own mind and resolve this guilt, he still can't escape it. And it results in his dream movie being made without him, almost forcing him to take credit for a fake performance and live out the lie for the next year, which is not great for his perception of himself. Bojack can't just push everything away and expect things to still work in his favor, or for it not to be blamed on his mistakes, like, you know, his relationship with the director, who ended up making a pretty decent Secretariat movie, apparently. At the end of the day, his misery for that fake Secretariat and his needing to pretend as if he gave a performance he never truly gave is entirely his doing, and a consequence of his own actions. Another critical time where Bojack learns the consequences of his own actions is with Hollyhock, both when she stays with him and later when he teaches at her college. First, in season 4, when Hollyhock is drugged, Bojack feels immense guilt for not taking proper care of her while she was under his roof, even if he does take a lot of his anger out on Beatrice, who truly did cause Hollyhock's overdose. He does blame himself, though, quite heavily along with her. However, after these mistakes, Bojack takes extensive action to rectify it, conducting a thorough search for Hollyhock's mother, Henrietta, and resolving to give her this information without any credit to himself, solely out of care for Hollyhock, and not trying to reel her back in as he has done with grand gestures in the past. It shows how truly rattled he was after this whole situation occurred, and how his behavior and lackadaisical attitude does affect the people around him in a very palpable way that he had previously regarded as not possible, despite the many infractions pointing against it. And it helps him take a positive step forward in his growth, learning to do things out of compassion and true care rather than selfish pursuits or to reel someone back into your life, which he continues by agreeing to do Filbert, Princess Carolyn's show, who she signed him on to before she actually asked him. We see this proved even further in the later seasons, cementing that he has indeed learned this lesson, where he genuinely treats his friends and lifts them up out of care for their well-being and not for any selfish reasons. Like in Face of Depression, when he visits Diane and helps her realize that she needs to admit to herself she is struggling, just as she got him to realize last season. Or to Princess Carolyn for providing advice that would help her retain that work-life balance that she needs, spending time with her daughter and running her company, to be able to achieve what she truly wanted and live a healthy lifestyle. And he's only doing this. Another great example of Bojack's compassion, although it doesn't result in the happiest ending, is his treatment and relationship with Dr. Champ. Although he is, yes, definitely responsible in a way for Dr. Champ's relapse, as he kept the water bottle full of vodka and subsequently accidentally had it distributed among the regular water bottles. It's quite a bit of coincidence, but he still has to own up to it. He actually does so much to make sure that Dr. Champ is okay the next day, and when he sees him struggle afterwards, does everything he can to put him back on the right track, even if it makes Dr. Champ hate him personally. I mean, after he puts Dr. Champ back in rehab so that he can work through these issues again, even if it doesn't work later on, Bojack knows that he is doing the right thing, because this is what helped him to realize the error of his cycle, to draw a line and finally change. So he's hoping to do the same thing for him, no matter what Dr. Champ thinks of him in the end, because he cares, not because he wants notoriety, which I think is a great showing of how much he's learned about genuine compassion over the course of the 6 seasons. Has no ulterior motives, no selfish desires underneath them. He additionally sees how much it truly affects Hollyhock in season 5 when she returns in ancient history, struggling to even be in the same house where the incident occurred, fearing for her safety under his roof. It really gives him a great idea of how far these effects can go towards someone's emotional health, toward their perception of you as a person. And then, later in season 6, after learning about Bojack's time in Tasuka and his pattern with young women in general, Hollyhock distances herself, eventually cutting him off completely after the disastrous Biscuits-Braxby interview, with a letter explaining why. Now, we don't get to read it, so I'm not positive she mentioned exactly what had pushed her to distance herself, but I do believe she informed Bojack that she had grown uncomfortable learning what he'd done in the past. I am almost positive that Hollyhock would give him that closure, at least. And this, in itself, shows Bojack in perhaps the most extreme way thus far, that your actions do indeed have consequences and can come back years in the future to destroy even the most positive relationships you've built, those you thought would be in your life forever. His reputation, for the meantime, because Hollywood is, you know, kind of forgetful, is destroyed, and those closest to him struggle to stay in his circle. A great example being Diane in Int Sub, who exposes his behavior after he declares that he doesn't think he actually needs therapy. She was happy that he was getting help and was willing to be his friend before that and support him, but right when he displays that he doesn't intend to learn from any of his mistakes, Diane shoves them right back in his face and shows Bojack that nobody is willing to forget. He truly has to pay for his past actions, and as a result of his final bender, even is sentenced to time in prison, fully cementing this lesson to Bojack that he is not above repercussions in any way. He is just like everyone else. And it sends a really important lesson to the viewers along with Bojack, that no action you carry out is meaningless, and you should consider how your behavior will affect others before you act that way. It's the least we can do as humans for each other. Another main lesson this show teaches us through Bojack is that our past experiences do not excuse our current actions in any way, no matter how tragic. Explaining our actions is different than excusing them. We get a crystal clear picture of what Bojack's upbringing was like in an effort to explain how his parents molded the man that we see by the time the series starts. There has to be some explanation considering how overtly rude, uncaring, and selfish he is at the start of season 1.
Bojack often felt the need to impress me with material items.
You can see from the teeny tiny brushstrokes that this is very expensive.
I wondered where this came from. There were two obvious suspects: his mother Beatrice, heiress to the Sugarman Sugar Cube's fortune and used to certain comforts, and his working-class father, Butterscotch Horseman, who struggled and often failed to provide those comforts. Or maybe it was something even...
His parents largely neglected him as a child and oftentimes criticized him whenever they did manage to pay attention. He was left at soccer practice for hours out of sheer forgetfulness on their part, is slapped for presenting heartfelt gifts, and is not allowed to show really any emotion, at least around his father, lest that be seen as weak.
Don't you sing those songs in your nightclub act called My Daddy Was My Mommy while gazing longingly at a tangled string of pearls. Pearls are for ladies, Bojack. Pearls are for ladies.
Although, I would say Beatrice is just as harsh with Bojack's crying.
That is a perfectly good cigarette, and you are going to finish it.
But I don't want...
And I don't want to be the mother of a quitter. Finish it. Don't you dare cry. Don't you ever cry. You wanted this.
Are you punishing me for smoking or for stealing?
I'm punishing you for being alive.
Both of his parents were towering, terrifying figures that rarely showed any humanity or love to him. And they also inadvertently contributed to his addiction to alcohol, his father getting him blackout drunk on purpose, and the both of them regularly leaving it around for child Bojack to drink, which we see in the season 6 premiere. We don't even know if this is the first drink Bojack's ever had. He's so calm with it. It leads us to believe that this is actually a regular occurrence for the end of their parties, and that this behavior has been going on since before he could even form concrete memories, which is, oh, so awful, and explains a lot about why Bojack is so attached to these tendencies. Simultaneously, his mother put immense pressure on him to do something substantial and important with his life, to make her sacrifice having him, quote unquote, worth it.
I can't.
Can't lives in a house on Won't Street. You will not embarrass me in front of the entire supper club.
But I don't feel like singing.
Nobody gives a damn what you feel. You've got an audience out there, and they want to hear you sing. Now, you want your mommy to love you. You go out there, and you do the only thing you're good for, which is singing that goddamn lollipop song.
Which is what led him to go on to wish for immense fame and money, to prove her wrong and have millions that would love him, thinking that that would right all of this negativity that has built up inside of him and hopefully earn his parents' respect and love, which he desperately wanted, despite his great protestations. We see this explicitly described in Free Churro through Bojack's desire to be seen by his mother, thinking that she has finally at least acknowledged him as a person right on her deathbed, but then later learns that she was simply reading a sign, and reveals that he needed that from her, even as much as he despised his mother and his father. As he says, all he had was them as a child, and them depriving him of their love permanently damaged him for the rest of his life, from his ability to cope with negative emotions to his ability to show love to others, or even just let tears out of his face. And although his childhood certainly played a role in shaping who he is, his addictions, and his general self-worth, he mistakenly uses his past as a shield, a defense, to be able to repeat this behavior, because it's a much easier coping mechanism than diving into your psyche with a therapist and unpacking your trauma. Though, obviously, it is not even remotely as effective. Cannot stress that enough. However, this childhood that he suffered through and this perhaps disappointing life he has as a result is no excuse to behave in the way that he does. He states later in the series, in fact, that he spent so long assuming that this was the only way that he was able to be, and actively chooses in season 6 to make a change to ultimately feel better fulfilled.
The main thing I think about is how stupid I am that I didn't do this sooner. I wasted so many years being miserable because I assumed that was the only way to be. I don't want to do that anymore.
It was something that he was capable of doing sooner, as his parents never actually doomed him to be any type of person. After his career did not fulfill him or get him to feel good about himself in the way that he always intended, he simply sinks down into everything his parents instilled into him as a growing horse, believing that he is just born broken and will never be able to be fulfilled in any meaningful way.
You know, sometimes I feel like I was born with a leak, and any goodness I started with just slowly spilled out of me, and now it's all gone. And I'll never get it back in me. It's too late.
In fact, his mother calls him in the season 2 premiere to directly remind him of this fact. His parents are broken, and so is he, and nothing could fix them. So Bojack might as well treat everyone on the set like shit, even the children. But he's really using this perception to act as if he doesn't still have free will and the ability to rectify and change his behavior if he truly commits himself to it. The truth is, he knows what he's doing is wrong. I mean, his inner voice scrutinizes every bit of his behavior every single day, but he actively drowns it out, ignores it, or simply indulges in the self-deprecating destructive thoughts rather than learning from mistakes, resolving that he should be alone, push people away because he'll inevitably hurt them, instead of why did I hurt them in the first place and how can I avoid doing that in the future. Todd also directly tells him in It's You that it isn't his childhood that has made him this way. It has affected him as a person, sure, but everything he's done, that is Bojack Horseman.
No, Bojack, just stop. You are all the things that are wrong with you. It's not the alcohol or the drugs or any of the shitty things that happened to you in your career or when you were a kid. It's you. All right? It's you.
Who you are is what you do, and if you look back and only see pain and suffering in your wake, you need to realize that that is a part of who you are. You can work to change it and to do better in the future, but it is always inevitably a piece of your persona. Once you accept that, you can start to actually move forward and grow. Though Bojack slides further back immediately after this, sometimes hearing the truth from someone you never expected to confront you shakes you so badly you need anything to drown out the noise and quite possibly retreat into defensive tendencies. Herb tries to get Bojack to see this as well in The Telescope, way back in season 1, telling him that he'd probably feel better and be able to grow more if he just admitted to himself his selfishness, his choosing to make these mistakes, that he isn't always the victim just because of what his parents did to him or his addictions, and that, despite the fact that he is the main character, he isn't the main character in this story. Bojack is a coward and uses all these methods to distract himself because he's too afraid of facing the person that he's become, for a majority of the series at least. It's an absolutely critical message for those who come from broken homes and perhaps perpetuate that behavior to learn. No one is hopeless. You choose to act out this behavior, and while there are definitely factors that have led there, you can always make the choice to do better. Nobody is doomed to be the terrible person they feel they are. Another important lesson from this show is that saying that you're trying to be better doesn't mean that you're actually trying, or that anyone owes you the benefit of the doubt, especially when you've made many, many mistakes in the past. You have to keep trying every day. Just setting out on the path doesn't mean you'll reach the destination. I mean, this is what the running monkey guy was trying to convey at the end of season 2. Just resolving to set out on that endeavor to change is not enough. You have to set out on it every single day. I think seasons 2, 3, and 5 demonstrate these concepts really well, as all of these premieres begin with Bojack trying to move forward and be a different person, albeit all in slightly different ways. In Brand New Couch, the season 2 premiere, Bojack starts an attempt to live an actually healthier life, buying jogging gear, drinking smoothies, being generally nicer to those around him, but he quickly falls short of consistent effort. I mean, he outfits himself in jogging gear, but he doesn't really go jogging until like the actual end of the season. Additionally, one of his largest issues, drinking excessively, is not curtailed in any way. We see him already sinking into alcohol in the second episode in that jogging outfit after he struggles with Wanda. With this resolution to change on his part does not come with much follow through, though he attaches himself to Wanda and promises her that he will become a better man through their relationship, because he kind of expects her to do it for him. He still remains paranoid, pushing her away at different points, like in After the Party when he questions their quick commitment to one another even though it was his idea, and struggling to admit that he actually loves her. And though the resolution in Higher Love is a bit of progress from Bojack, actually learning to take care of himself if he truly cares for Wanda, he still refuses to admit his feelings and puts a definite wall between them, regardless of this slightly positive movement forward. And eventually, he succeeds, sinking down into his usual spiral of self-loathing and substance abuse, using the fact that this movie isn't what he expected as an excuse because his entire life is meant to be garbage, and when Wanda tries to pull him out of it and break that cycle, he actively chooses to regress further, then going to Tasuka, where we all know what happens. Once the movie goes south, even the pretense of growing is kind of totally abandoned, and not wanting to be around someone so toxic, Wanda decides to leave as well, though she doesn't really actually want to leave Bojack. Bojack states that she fell in love with a version of him that doesn't exist, a version that's pretending, someone that he could never be. No matter how hard he tried, it was destined to end exactly like this, with him at rock bottom.
What happened, Bojack?
Same thing that always happens. You didn't know me, then you fell in love with me, and now you know me.
You know, it's funny. When you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags.
And after everything with Penny and Charlotte goes down, he's jolted back to reality, shown once again that he can't continue that cycle of distraction, or he's going to cause more harm around him, and he needs to resolve to change every day. That's the hard part, as our lovely running friend tells us, and what he wants to do in season 3. So, in Start Spreading the News, though he does make a visible effort to be kinder to Todd, he attempts to leave all of his mistakes behind him, rather than learn from them, essentially abandoning horsing around in favor of that new movie star identity that Secretariat could provide him and his ego, which he did before in 2007 with the Bojack Horseman show. But right away, we get the sense that he has already given up on this crusade to be better, as he consumes copious amounts of alcohol in the very first sequence, and also we never see him run, like not once. Instead, he just sinks himself completely into the Oscar campaign, entangling his self-worth with the award and Anna Spanakopita's opinion of him as a professional actor, which results in him, once again, feeling as if he deserves special treatment and taking advantage, having sex with Emily without regard for Todd's feelings, firing Princess Carolyn after one mistake despite her pleas, and distancing himself from Diane to avoid addressing his still ever-present insecurity.
I don't know why it's so hard for you to believe that I could be happy. I'm not like you, okay? I don't fetishize my own sadness.
I don't fetishize my own sadness.
Sure. I know that you can tweet for a living in a house in Beverly Hills that your husband bought, or you can think you're better than everyone, but you can't do both.
I don't think I'm better than everyone.
And again, I say, sure.
You know what's gonna happen? You're gonna win that Oscar, and you're gonna go up on that stage and give your little speech, and then you're gonna go home. And you're gonna be so miserable you'll want to kill yourself. And you're gonna have nobody left to stop you.
And in season 5, we begin in a similar place after a long season of growth for Bojack with Hollyhock under his roof and the tragedy of Sarah Lynn on his mind from the last time he slid back on his attempts to be better. Hollyhock was able to get Bojack to really admit his past transgressions to himself and face them head on, as well as care for others besides himself, even getting him to almost be civil with his own mother, which is a huge step in the right direction. Plus, after his mistake with Hollyhock being drugged and almost seriously harmed under his watch, he's trying extra hard not to repeat such traumatic errors. He directly tells Princess Carolyn in the light bulb scene that he doesn't want to be the character of Filbert, which is basically an exact mirror of the personality he's trying to leave behind.
Filbert, he's a drunk, he's an asshole. I don't want to be him.
So maybe you don't be the drunk asshole. Maybe this time you have a good attitude and you don't drink so much and you show up for your call time and then you put on the Filbert costume and you pretend to be this other guy. And then when you're done shooting, you take off your costume and you're Bojack, the star of the show that everybody likes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Even creating a system where he drinks only a little bit each day, showing more restraint than we've ever seen from him previously. But we also see him slip very quickly, accusing Princess Carolyn for forcing him to do the show, even though he offered to be a good friend to her and show that he'd changed in the first place. She guides him back on track, but by ancient history, Bojack has declared that he's down to 1 bottle a day, and also displays signs that he's becoming extremely addicted to his painkillers for his back, backsliding on that promise that he's made to himself and to Princess Carolyn at the start of the season. Not to mention that it also appears he engaged in cheat days, as he did with Diane. I'd assume more than once. And it gets so serious and intense, he even drives into traffic, fully surrendering himself to this addiction and not confiding in those who care about him and are right there, trying to be there for him, like Hollyhock or even Gina. Honestly.
I am in pain.
No, I get that, but
all the time, my whole life, and you have no idea. So I'm sorry that you had one bad experience with my mom, but I have been in pain my whole life.
I think you should take me to the airport.
Okay.
He uses this car crash as an excuse to keep doing them, rather than admit that he has an issue. We see next episode the effects that this has on his overall behavior with his major argument with Diane, where he asserts plainly that he has given up on changing and that it's never going to happen, as it never works out for him. Diane correctly, though, reads his ass here. Bojack wasn't lying at the start of this season when he said he doesn't want to be this person anymore. But here, he is lying. He's pushing and prodding Diane, trying to get her to say that he isn't beyond reach, to remind him, to pull him out of this funk, because he can't really do that himself. And while she does believe he can still be better, she also knows that this cycle of behavior is becoming extremely toxic, and it isn't healthy for either of them, and thus she decides to leave. And as soon as she does that, Bojack pleads with her to stay, to recognize that he's just saying things. It's a fight, they're at a party. He really is trying. He doesn't mean what he said to her, but it's too late, because just saying that you're trying isn't enough. You need to take actual steps to improve, as he does at the end of the season by going into rehab. Overall, this message speaks to a really prevalent problem that people have with forgiveness, where many are scared to forgive for fear of being a pushover of this exact phenomenon. Someone toxic and unhealthy, reeling them back in and dragging them down with the promise to change despite not following through, ever. The important thing to remember is that forgiveness is crucial. We need to support each other, and it is important to give people second chances. But as soon as the relationship becomes damaging to your own mental health, you need to distance yourself. Not necessarily cut them off completely, but just make sure you take care of your own well-being. That way, you'll be in a better place to help them. Just like Diane does for Bojack at the end of this season. Very responsible decision making on her part, and her balance between forgiving him and making sure he doesn't cause her to spiral down is something we should all take note of. She offers hope that if you truly take this seriously, which Bojack shows by going through with rehab and not, immediately running back to his house, that there is perhaps a path forward for your friendship, despite everything that has happened. But you have to show that you are making an effort every day. I know it sounds hard, but it's possible. Another crucial lesson that Bojack learns over the years is that financial success and positive career movement does not guarantee extended happiness or really a social circle that you can truly count on and rely on for emotional support. When Bojack was coming up in the industry with Herb, he was having a wonderful time, dreaming of what could have been, playing comedy clubs, spending time with his best friend, still being down to earth and relatively emotionally well-adjusted. It takes Bojack reflecting on his entire life in The View from Halfway Down for him to realize that this was when he was truly at his happiest, when things were going best for him.
I had this one student who was really struggling, just couldn't get over this hump.
And what? You helped him do good in a scene for your class?
Come on, buddy. What was so special about that moment?
It felt good to help someone do something. I liked it because it reminded me of when I was young, just starting out. You and me, screwing around, hitting up open mics, trying to figure it out. I think that was the best part.
Really?
However, during that time, he thought he was miserable, wanting to be cast in Secretariat and tiring of doing commercials, playing at comedy clubs, and bartending. It's difficult to appreciate what you have while you have it, and everyone thinks automatically if you're more successful, you'll be happier. But that's never truly the case, because when they finally took off and made it big in Hollywood, everything went downhill for their relationship. Bojack's ego and his alcohol abuse. Gradually, the two of them grew further apart as Bojack sunk deeper into this perception of himself as an A-list star who deserves better treatment than those around him, no longer appreciating Herb as a friend or his decision to include him on the show at all. I mean, Bojack literally owes Herb everything. I mean, Charlotte even worried about this before he caught his big break, stating that she feared for the person he'd become when he eventually makes it. And guess what? He plays directly into those fears, let me tell you. And ultimately, he makes the choice to oust Herb from the show and continue without his friend involved at all.
We're letting Herb go. I can't do that. I'm not asking you. It's nothing personal. I like Herb. I think he's a good guy. Sometimes being a star means making tough choices. You can storm out, make a big show out of what a good friend you are, or you could be the guy who does his job. You can choose whatever path you want, but I'll tell you right now, you don't win awards, and you don't get to be on the covers of magazines, and you don't get to play the lead role in the Secretariat movie by being a good friend. What's that old expression about how the show must go on? Oh, right. It's don't be an idiot. I know who you are, and I know you've already made your decision, but if you want to surprise me, now's the time to do it. That's what I thought. You're doing the right thing. I know it's hard, but if Herb's really your friend, he'll understand.
The show is everything to him. We can see this when he tries to justify his decision to Sharona and Sarah Lynn in A Little Uneven Is All.
He was actually very nice. You know, I want things to be easy on set. And I think Danny represents a fresh start.
Is that why you got Herb fired?
Hey, there was nothing I could do about Herb. If it wasn't for me, they would have canceled the whole show. And then where would you go?
I miss Herb.
We all do, sweetie.
Herb, Danny, what difference does it make? We got a job to do, right?
I'm just saying I miss him.
And I'm just saying, it's not my fault he got fired. So I don't know why you're complaining to me.
I'm sorry.
I actually think Danny represents an opportunity for a new beginning.
You don't think it feels weird to do the show without Herb?
Well, if Herb really cared about the show, maybe he shouldn't have...
What, been gay?
No, that's not... Obviously, I put my ass on the line for you people.
Bojack.
Do you know how lucky we are to have this? Herb was gonna throw that all away. I made the tough choice. What did you do?
Where he needs this show to keep going, to fuel his self-worth, to fill that hole inside of him, even though it never will because he's thrown away every good relationship he has for the sake of it. So once it ends, he has nothing left and sinks into that Bojack we meet at the beginning of the series. Though of course, he could have called her, but he's so ashamed and feels so guilty for what he's done that he can't bear to face him. It isn't until Still Broken, Herb's funeral episode in season 2, that Bojack learns he can't really make up for these mistakes, no matter what he does professionally for himself or for her. This betrayal will always be lingering on his conscience.
I guess it was just easier to believe that you killed him for his book than believe that he just died for nothing.
There is no shame in dying for nothing. That's why most people die.
I just wanted to fix things, somehow.
I'm sorry, horse guy, but you can't.
And then, with the Bojack Horseman show, he goes way too far in the other direction, trying to overcorrect for his negatively polluted experience on Horsin' Around by completely shifting and soiling his reputation from it. soiling by like literally shitting on. Once again, although he thought this was exactly what he needed to feel whole after so long being depressed post-horsing around, once the ratings come in, he sinks into a deep depression once again, as we see when Princess Carolyn visits him in The Best Thing That Ever Happened. She's able to get him up and continue forward, but mostly through distractions, with her telling him that he's perfect and people simply weren't ready for his show, and then also sleeping with him.
And your show is daring and cutting edge. People just aren't ready.
Yeah, people. It's not me. It's the people that are the problem. Everyone's dumb and I am great. Why do I always forget that?
That's the spirit.
That made me realize that you're the best thing that ever happened to me, with your sexy cat eyes and your cute little hair curl. You look like a soft-serve strawberry ice cream.
He's not actually going to make any progress forward or continue to improve himself or his perception of himself. We know full well that this cycle will repeat for the next 7 years, not making any progress until PC eventually, thankfully, dumps him for her own sake. Not to mention that in the process of trying to get this show to be a success and fill that hole, he takes advantage of Sarah Lynn and permanently damages her self-worth, as I spoke about earlier. But instead of making a show that truly could have affected change and might have eventually made Bojack feel fulfilled for affecting that change in people, as it seemed like Mitch's life was an examination of alcoholism and depression, which would be perfect for Bojack to do, and perhaps he could learn from it. Instead, he decides to connect it entirely to his own sense of self, and that's what destroys the show. Secretariat is also an excellent example of this. We see very explicitly that Bojack has been dreaming of making a Secretariat movie pretty much forever. He was his childhood idol. Since he always yearned to make something exceptional of himself, it's reasonable that his dream would latch onto a biopic of his personal hero. However, in the throes of actually making this movie, Bojack really doesn't seem any more fulfilled than usual. He still struggles with Wanda, still avoids his emotions, still drinks excessively. He treats Kelsey as a parental figure that he needs to earn the approval of, and both in Brand New Couch and The Shot, accessing his damage to be able to bring about a more informed performance often causes him extreme pain. I think mostly due to the fact that he spent so much of his life avoiding or denying this pain, so indulging in it is likely more fresh of a wound than we would expect for this 50-year-old horseman. But when Kelsey tells him that this is the moment Secretariat realizes he can't be fixed, that there's something broken inside of him, even using you to attribute it to Bojack and put him in that headspace, he takes it onto his own shoulders. This is just reaffirming a belief that he already had, and in turn makes him feel even worse about himself in the process, even if what Kelsey is saying is not true about him or Secretariat. But Secretariat, as we know, his story has already ended. So Kelsey is able to speak from experience when she says that Secretariat thinks this is the moment where he breaks and is never able to fix himself, because he wasn't. But Bojack still is.
This is the moment that Secretariat stops running, because this is the moment you realize something inside you is broken, and it can never be fixed.
And then as soon as the production takes a turn away from what he genuinely wished for, the gritty, realistic biopic, he gives up on the project entirely, whisking himself away to New Mexico and avoiding this tainted dream by any means necessary. However, he doesn't really give this movie a fair chance. As we see when he returns and finally watches the version that they made without him, the movie is actually pretty good, albeit inaccurate. And subsequently, he feels guilty for not being a part of it, even if the success is accredited to his brave performance. And suddenly, this project that was supposed to be the apex of his life, was supposed to make everything worth it in the end, meant nothing to him. And without winning the Oscar, additionally, he feels as if there was almost no purpose to it, when this was supposed to be the purpose to his entire life. It all speaks to a really important idea about financial, professional, and monetary success not necessarily providing you the happiness that you seek. Obviously, you need money to, provide your physiological needs, and that is necessary to be happy, but there also needs to be a balance, and casting away your personal life, your crucial connections with the people you love, and friendships in favor of possible career success is never really a smart idea idea about how to build a well-rounded, fulfilling life, and I hate the hustle culture that we live in, especially in America, how focused we are on work and how our whole lives are based around what job we get. That is not what life's about, guys. It pays way more than your career. Please don't put all of your effort only into that. Another critical lesson that Bojack learns is that nobody owes you their company, and that this cast of friends he's built for himself won't stick around just because they've been given that label, especially if you repeatedly make mistakes, rarely own up to them, and don't properly consider their feelings. And for the most part, Bojack is actually really lucky with the people he has in his circle because they have a ton of tenacity and patience for his shit, especially Princess Carolyn and Mr. Peanut Butter. But they also proved that even they have their limits and need to be treated with kindness at the very least. Like when Mr. Peanut Butter asserts that he notices this entire time how rude Bojack is around him, and let's find out.
All I ever wanted was to be your friend, and you treat me like a big joke. You think I don't notice? Why don't you like me?
Because I'm jealous.
Of what? Diane?
No. Of everything. Everything comes so easy for you.
Oh, and it doesn't for you. You're a millionaire movie star with a girlfriend who loves you, acting in your dream movie. What more do you want?
I want to feel good about myself. The way you do. And I don't know how.
However, one of the best examples of this idea is Todd Chavez, who stuck around by Bojack's side through a lot, to put it lightly. He stayed after the Halloween party in 2009, resolving to sleep on Bojack's couch indefinitely, as he had just been kicked out of his own parents' house and, quote, had nowhere else to go. And Bojack, though not really caring for Todd as a human, helping him out does make Bojack feel better about himself. But in the end, he still doesn't treat Todd as a friend deserves to be treated. He belittles him, bullies him, uses him for schemes, gets him drunk, and generally doesn't care for his own well-being, or what he's thinking. Mostly just using him as a prop for his own well-being, even though, you know, he's not doing a very good job of that. Whereas Todd always sticks by his side, gives up his own interests for Bojack's sake, and emotionally supports him through his lowest points, though not always in the healthiest way. Like when Todd strikes out to do improv and invites Bojack to his showcase, even if it seems silly, and yes, it does factually turn out to be a cult, it did mean a lot to Todd for Bojack to show up and support him for once, and perhaps could have prevented any hardship Todd faced on the Giggle Ship by trying to awaken him to the fact that it is actually a cult by, you know, seeing it in person. He does show up later and admit what Todd means to him, but the mistake, along with the rock opera, lingers in Todd's mind, corrupting his image of Bojack as an actually good guy deep down. Because, again, who you are is what you do, and Bojack never really proves it. Or when Todd repeatedly tells him about what he's doing or his dreams, like his Disneyland, and Bojack just kinda nods along without really listening to his ideas at all. It's not until It's You that Bojack is directly told that these disappointments have weighed on Todd heavily over the years. Emily is just the one that pushed him over the line. And even apologizing and excusing his behavior due to his damage doesn't do anything to diminish that distaste for Bojack's personality.
Oh, I screwed up. I don't know why.
Great. Of course. Here it comes. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep doing shitty things and then feel bad about yourself like that makes it okay. You need to be better.
And this is also the moment that he declares his independence, moving out of Bojack's house permanently. Their relationship is forever changed from this moment onward, and Bojack viscerally sees that no one will stay in his life simply because they were labeled a friend, or just because he provides a roof over their head, especially because that doesn't come out of generosity. I mean, Bojack ruined an opportunity just so Todd would continue to live with him for entirely selfish reasons. What I also like is that Todd is not out of Bojack's life completely. He simply puts a sharp distance between them, ensuring that he isn't emotionally taxed as he was when they lived in the same house. As when Bojack returns from his year-long absence when he was at the old Sugarman place, Todd stops him from dumping all of his emotions or bothering him with another apology by saying that their distance over the last year had really helped Todd grow, and he'd like to continue that at least for now. It's extremely responsible and is a great way way to demonstrate boundaries to Bojack himself.
I had sex with the one person I've ever seen you be in love with.
I guess they're not gonna put you in the Best Friends Hall of Fame, but I don't know that I loved her.
I got more of you than I ever deserved. If you never talk to me again, I just want you to know that I appreciate it. And I appreciate you.
Thanks. It was shitty what you did with Emily.
So if you're not mad about Emily...
It wasn't just Emily, Bojack, and I don't know if I'm ready for us to be friends again yet.
Oh, okay.
But we can be more than not friends.
But it isn't permanent. He still can be generally friends with Bojack, is always cordial when he sees him, and in season 6 offers him fantastic advice and gives him the benefit of the doubt for the future. Todd is a wonderful friend, but what this shows us is that he's also a responsible friend with regard to his own emotional safety. And Diane, who also exemplifies this idea well, is a character who entered Bojack's life rather late, but one who perhaps has had the biggest impact on him as a person. I mean, he saw her immediately as the one who would be able to finally save him, change him, no matter how repeatedly difficult he makes it for her as the series goes on, and that she would always be there to support him. Perhaps most strongly evidenced in Downer Ending, where he begs her to tell him that he's a good person deep down. He heavily depends on her perspective of his personality because she spent so long getting to know him for his book, with him detailing all the most difficult events of his life that he struggled to verbalize before to her.
Well, then you're going to have to open up and give me something real.
What? You think I can't open up?
Well, I don't know if you can or not. You certainly haven't.
Okay. From now on, full truth. Warts and all. You're not gonna make me look like an asshole, are you?
I don't know. Are you an asshole?
But it doesn't end after this either. Diane is the one who comforts Bojack after Sarah Lynn's death, who convinces him to come back to LA, who calls him on his bullshit in season 5, and who eventually gets him to take the biggest step forward thus far, entering rehab and resolving to finally get serious about bettering himself. He thought she would always be there for him though, even after he told her it was alright for her to move to Chicago and that he would be fine without her here. So when he relapses and sinks back into that heavy self-contempt that nearly causes him to end everything without regard for his own life, before he does, he begs Diane, once again, to prove to him that he has value, needing her to prop him up as he's seemingly unable to do so himself, and trying to reinforce that cycle that they both thought they had finally broken.
You were happy on the voicemail. You sounded happy. Or lightly sardonic, or glibly nihilistic, or however you'd describe that thing you get that's the closest to the emotion normal people call happy.
I'm sorry.
And you were clearly intoxicated, and you were talking about swimming. I'm going swimming, you said. Since nothing matters anyway, and nobody cares about me, I might as well go swimming, right?
I'm so sorry.
Call me back if you don't want me to go swimming. Otherwise, I'm just gonna assume you don't care. For 7 hours, I couldn't get in touch with anyone, and I was sure you were dead. And it was my fault for leaving you, for feeling good, for not worrying. When I left for Chicago, you promised me you were gonna be okay, but I made you promise me that. Was I selfish for believing you?
No.
Why did you call me? You knew I was in Chicago.
I don't know. I was drunk, and I was high, and I wanted to talk to you.
And after this extremely traumatic call, she's forced to leave him for her own sanity and safety. I mean, after this, he caused her to doubt everything about her new life, to spiral into guilt for not protecting him, and almost leave this relationship that has been entirely beneficial for her, even though she had no obligation to save him in the first place. Not to mention that she had already moved to Chicago with his permission. Even if Bojack appears to be in a better place, she has to do what is best for her emotional health, and Bojack has repeatedly torn her down over the course of the show. But his relationships, one by one, teach him that they can't be maintained with a simple apology or showing of repentance. Feeling bad about what you've done doesn't make it right, and nobody will continue to trust you unless you show them that you're directly making an effort to change. The world doesn't revolve around you. These people are living their own lives, but if you are constantly absorbed in your own problems, your own turmoil, and use these people around you without thinking for a second about what they might be going through, they are not going to stick around. Again, Bojack is very lucky that he has some extremely understanding friends where seemingly Princess Carolyn, Mr. Peanut Butter, and Todd will stay in his life for the foreseeable future. They will definitely be very cautious with him now, I'm sure, except for Mr. Peanut Butter. I mean, he straight up like lived with him for a while. But he's learning boundaries. Maybe Mr. Peanut Butter would learn how to be cautious with Bojack too. But they are still his friends and want to see him through this journey of recovery because he has proven to them over the course of season 6 how much he actually cares. And the final lesson that I'm going to discuss today is that rehabilitation is not a linear progression. Entering rehab and even doing some great work is not the end of your story. After Bojack ends his stint in rehab near the middle of the 6th season, he largely expects to leave the past entirely behind him. Pushing all those horrible things out of his mind, he resolves to become this new Bojack, which is generally beneficial as he treats people around him with respect, but simultaneously, he also believes that he's now beyond reproach, that the consequences of his actions shouldn't be able to reach him, as if rehab is a machine that you can step into that makes you into a completely different person and fixes all your flaws, like that Urkel machine.
What if I get sober and I'm still the same awful person I've always been, only more sober?
I think that is a very real possibility.
He quite literally states that they can't get him for old shit because he's a different person, though Todd recognizes that he's acting exactly the same. He thinks that post-rehab, though, he'll be riding high for the rest of his life, that he is finally fixed. But our stories are never really over, nor are we ever done developing. And he hasn't really faced a lot of consequences for most of the things he's done across his life. So when everything comes back to bite him in the ass, and to be honest, there's still a shit ton they didn't cover in that Biscuits Braxby interview, he's not really able to handle it well and becomes rather defensive, looking a bit aggressive. And when people close to him distance themselves because of it, he ultimately sinks back into his old ways, feeling alone and forgetting that community that he had built and everything that he had learned from rehab. That, oh, everyone is going to pile onto me because I'm terrible, so I might as well just drink and do these terrible things, play into this perception that the media is talking about right now. And this relapse is perhaps one of his most dangerous, as he very nearly drowns and dies as a consequence for this deep dive into drug and alcohol abuse. However, in the finale, I think Todd brings us the most comforting lesson in all of this, saying that he can always turn himself around, even if he does relapse again in the future. That's the good thing, that sure, we're never done learning and growing, and it means we might make mistakes in the future. But that also means that if we're in a rough spot, it doesn't have to last forever. There's always a chance, a choice to turn yourself around.
I worry about what's gonna happen when I get out. What if I relapse again?
Then you'll get sober again.
The hokey pokey.
Yeah, there's way too much emphasis on the hokey pokey part. And I was thinking about my mom. You know, my relationship with my mom. It's weird, you know, awkward, but, you know, she's trying. And a couple years ago, I never thought I would have any kind of relationship with her. Like, I was sure of it.
What changed?
I don't know. I did, or she did, or, we are. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like the song says, you do the hokey pokey and you turn yourself around. You turn yourself around. That's what it's all about.
Additionally, rehab itself isn't a perfect system, but that doesn't diminish its importance for those who use it to actually better themselves. Bojack is correct in his dressing down of rehabilitation centers, their expensive plans, and how they do definitely profit off of addiction. But there is also inherent benefit to rehab as a concept as well. It doesn't make them overtly evil. As many things have in this world, there's benefits, and then there's things that need to be adjusted. But what it does do is provide a community, support, a system to help you understand that you aren't alone in this world. And there are many others who have struggled just like you have, who can fundamentally recognize and appreciate what you've gone through and guide you in the right direction for the future. So whether or not all of the sayings make sense, or the rituals are beneficial to you, or how dumb it feels feels to stand up in front of a group of people and say your name in such a formal way as Bojack does when he first attends an AA meeting, there is still a pillar of support to be found there. And we can see that because when Bojack loses his ability to be anonymous in this group, he really struggles to continue. He needs that support from other people, as anyone does. You shouldn't be ashamed of admitting it, and as ridiculous as it may feel for you, indulging in it might help you bond with others and get through this addiction that you are struggling with. It's a really heartfelt message about how important other people can be, and how whether or not you agree with everything in the system, there is definitely benefit to it. It can't be understated how important that sense of kinship and encouragement can be to recovering addicts. And Bojack learns that, yes, while rehab isn't perfect, and he might relapse again in the future that is in the realm of possibilities, it does provide a place for him to go if it ever happens again. People who get it. And that's really the most helpful thing that can keep him on track. The people around him. And that's why he needs to learn to appreciate them. And he did, I think. It's a very comforting finale we're given from this show, something that I always appreciated. And some people don't because they wanted Bojack to die, which is lame. I would rather him face his consequences, which he did end up doing. And it also is much more hopeful. The lesson isn't that people are doomed here. If Bojack died, what would that be saying? That rehab doesn't work? That some people are beyond help? No, what the finale does say is that no matter how many mistakes you make, you can keep living. You can turn yourself around. There is something that you can choose to do to be better than you were the day before. It's never hopeless. If you get one thing from this video, get that. But if you enjoyed this video, consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/PosiTVty to get extra content in the form of unedited essays so you hear all of my mistakes or things that I don't think YouTube wants to hear, and you get all of these videos before they come out on this platform. But the support on YouTube means like a shit ton to me and helps this channel grow every time you like or watch or comment a video. Discuss further in the comments if you agree or disagree. Let me know if I'm misinformed about everything. We can all learn from each other. Another takeaway. But I'll see you for the next video, and have a wonderful day.